Cool. All right, I think we're live, people. Thanks for joining another episode of the OpenJS Foundation's Cross-Project Council meeting. Today is the 6th of October. And yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Let's get right into some announcements, shall we? And Jory sent us over a note. She's in the ECMA meetings as well as Jordan, but Jory sent some announcements here. It's a bit quiet, she says, but AmpFest is on October 13th, and the AMP TSC AMA is on the 14th. So those are a couple of dates for your calendar. It's in like a week. And I can share this link with the chat and maybe throw it into look, I see a bunch of people on, hang on, let me promote. And then all of the modal windows get in my way to do more promoting. Please go away. All right. Great. Yeah. So AmpFest, AMP TSC. Drop the link in there as well in the meeting minutes. So those are a couple of announcements. Is there anything else? Rachel, did you have something you wanted to announce as well?
Sure. The Electron project has put out a usage survey. So if you are interested in that, we tweeted about it this morning, and so did Electron. So if that's of interest of you, please go check that out.
Cool. Is it on anything particular aspect of usage, or just kind of
specifically ecosystem usage?
Okay. Cool.
It's like developer tools around the project.
Great. Great. I hope it goes really well. Cool. Anything else? I know there was a board meeting. Anything out of that?
Let me just think if there's anything in particular. The vote for the collaboration spaces is ongoing. Trying to think, we started with a fairly light agenda. Go ahead, Brian.
I was just gonna ask, do you want me to poke that one?
Yeah, I think it's possibly time. I think we're pretty close, right, to closing that out, but maybe not quite.
We made the decision that our 2021 event will be virtual only. So our program committee just met on Monday. So we'll be putting together a plan for that and share that and get feedback from you all.
Great.
Yeah, I think those are the highlights that I can remember.
Is the plan to have the event in June or July?
That's right. The original dates were June 9th and 10th. It looks like we probably will stick with those dates we had discussed with the program committee a week prior, but that in the US is Memorial weekend, that Monday. So we'll likely keep that early June date, but we'll be, yeah, figuring out the path forward on that. So
great. Keep us posted.
Will do.
I got nothing planned, so. The state of the world.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Cool. So with all that, we can jump into the agenda unless there's anything else to discuss. Cool. If not, first agenda item is should we have a lightweight mechanism to spin off ad hoc CPC working groups? I think that we had, yeah, Mike Samuel commented now. You want to share your comment with the group, Mike?
Sure. Just the comment is just one whether about labeling to avoid a scenario where somebody invests a lot of effort in a lightweight committee assuming that the CPC has already kind of reached consensus that, whatever the committee is producing will be used unless there's, like some obvious problems with it. And so, because this lightweight process isn't based on kind of consensus that the goals of the committee are something that the larger organization wants to use, it seems rife for these kinds of mismatches, which can lead to bad feelings and contributors leaving. So I wonder whether any kind of labeling might kind of head that off.
Yeah, that's a good point to raise. I wonder if with the amount of activity in the CPC, which isn't a crazy amount, if this sort of stuff would be visible and we could make sure that we didn't run into situations like that proactively.
I think a lot of times, somebody might spin up an exploratory committee and then start talking about this committee to try to get interested people to contribute, and those and those people coming in after the committee has been spun up probably would not have the sense of the room that somebody who had been in the PC committees would have. And so, calling it an exploratory committee or a lightweight committee, making sure that labeling is in the name might help kind of set expectations and avoid frustration.
Yeah, that makes sense. I even hesitate to call it a committee.
Yeah,
in
that
general.
name sucks.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, well, I think these are good things to raise, and again, we can kind of iterate on like a meeting issue and see what's working and what's not working, perhaps.
I like Emily's suggestion, by the way. I think it's an interesting one to consider.
Go ahead. Can you share it with the group?
Yeah, what he said is perhaps it's finally time to move the normal CPC meetings to the biweekly and to use every other Tuesday for a working group session, which is sort of like the ultra lightweight version of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that idea as well. I think we would just need to be, number one, we'd have to consider what the timing is, and we were talking about timing earlier in terms of, what time the meetings are happening. And if we were alternating, then one time would be for the regular meeting and one time would be for a working meeting. And I think that it would perhaps require a little bit of, legwork beforehand to make sure that whatever the working meeting was, functional, and we had, an agenda or what have you, had it all set up. Which I think is maybe different than this issue, the Emily's suggestion. So perhaps we should even have another issue that proposes this sort of question and what sort of spins out of that. Like if we were to go bi-weekly and alternate with the working session.
I think it's related in the sense of, I think Toby can correct me if I'm wrong, is you're just like, it's a bunch of work to try and spin out like a one-time meeting. Like even just finding a time that fits for the whole group can be a challenge. Like that's where I find the most of the work is, right? So Emily's suggestion of, reusing the same slot, it's, it's a time that people have already committed to be available, you have in your calendar. So I see it as related in that sense. And either every alternate or, there's also the approach of like the second half of each meeting can be, like the first half is to sort of do what we do, which is go through the issues that are tagged. And then the second half can be reserved for like a longer deep dive on some topic, right? And people can leave if they're not interested in that second half.
Ooh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I worry that, 30 minutes is maybe not enough to get much done if we're,
That is a challenge, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a forcing function not to have the discussion like the one we're having right now, to be honest.
Right. Does time box things, right?
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'm open.
Let's give it a try. Next time something like this pops up, let's book half an hour for it. Or like, I mean, I feel like it worked well for the other issues that we had. Let's just give that a try.
Okay, I think that's fair. All right, cool. Does somebody want to maybe drop that into the issue, and we'll move on to the next agenda item? Thank you. All right, cool. So the next one is add growth templates, growth plan templates. This is pull request 647. Toby's first pass. Let's see.
We have
here.
agreement on how to move next, and I just have to do the work, which I haven't.
Okay. All right, cool. Easy enough. Encourage folks to take a look at those still. Next item is add examples of successful applications. I think this one also we're just waiting for maybe some stuff from you, Robin, about other applications that we might want to include here.
You're muted.
Yeah.
You were muted, Robin.
Sorry, I missed that. I will pull those and add those. Issue.
Great.
Wonderful.
Thank you, Robin. Cool. Moving right along. Simplify proposal process. This again just needs somebody to start a PR. Doesn't even need to be a perfect PR, but get the ball rolling, and we can kind of iterate there. Yeah. So if anybody has options here, if anybody has a moment and can kind of take a peek at this, I think you know, we're simplifying things, so hopefully it's not a big undertaking, and even just getting it started, we can start to iterate through the PR process. That'd be great. If I find time, I'll try to take a look at this myself.
Likewise for me.
Great, thank you, Michael. Next up is provide implementation guidance for DCO/CLA, and this one I think Brian is on your plate. You know we're all busy, but
yeah. So I can at least give kind of a sense of timeline here. I have excuse me, something that I need to get taken care of here for another project, which is for jQuery, which has bumped this one a little bit out. But I will just say the board has approved the new CLA templates. They've also approved iCLA only. If anybody would like me to get their project set up and they already know that they want to use a CLA, just reach out. It's not going to take any time at all to get that done. As far as writing this up, I think probably within a week or two is a reasonable expectation.
Right, that does remind me, Brian, I guess in terms of just using the iCLA, we just need a doc update somewhere, right?
Yeah, so that actually is something I can take care of fairly quickly here. It's just to give everybody context, the CLAs are kind of casually mentioned in passing in the IP policy as being something which projects can choose to do if they decide not to go with the baseline, which is to use the DCO. We don't need to make a change to the IP policy specifying that you can use iCLA only. That's just a clarifying thing, and I can put that on the page, which does describe the CLAs. It's cla.openjsf.org. So that's a minor change right there.
Yeah, that would be good because that would let us close that one out.
Do we need to update the guidance document too? I can't remember what I wrote.
I don't remember it, but it's a good point, Toby.
Are you looking?
Yeah, small
Brian,
clarification probably. Let me add, like, where are we collecting this information?
collecting
For this issue?
information?
I mean,
not
like the
sure.
next steps for this issue.
Do we have?
Oh,
Well,
yeah, I mean, that's, I guess it's up to me to draft it and then we can decide where to put it. We can
No, I
like
meant,
copy it
the
from
next
here, or-
steps. Okay, I just
You
want to
mean
note
the-
that.
sorry, there's two things. There's like provide implementation guidance for DCO CLA 632, but that's actually separate. I don't know that we had an issue tracking the question as to whether we could use just an ICLA or not.
We closed it.
Oh,
Well, it
okay.
was sort of mentioned. No, it was sort of mentioned in another issue that we closed.
Okay.
It's more that there is now a Brian mentioned that he had to change some of the text on his side on the website itself, and the IP guidance probably needs like a tiny small tweak to it. I just wanted to like keep a note of that we need to do that somewhere, so that it's just like we know that we have to do it.
Here, I'll create a new issue right now because I don't think, unless somebody can correct me, I don't think there's one that exists.
Thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Cool. Welcome, Jory. Thanks for joining. I know you're busy today. I will also add too that I forgot to mention in the announcements that today is also the standards meeting. Another announcement there. Cool. We good to move on from that issue? So there's nothing else. The next one is develop annual review process for projects. We've been working on this a bit. Any updates, perhaps, Toby, on your end?
Sorry, which one was this? I apologize.
No worries. Issue 592. This is a review process for projects. Trying to look to see last notes and PRs and stuff. I think we're gonna move something.
Yeah. So I think we have like the two next steps we're on top of. The project onboarding repository name to project status, we did that. The pull request to create for the growth projects, we did. Now the question is, do we want to go beyond? Because like the original request from Emily was to target not only growth projects, but more broadly all projects. And we haven't tackled the all projects bit. To be very honest, like this is really not at the top of my priority list. So if like someone else cares about this, I think someone should run with it, because I will not get to it for a while.
Okay, that's fair.
I'm happy to have conversations on the topic, but I don't want to be leading this. I just won't get to it.
Right, you're leading the effort on the growth plan side, right? But
yes,
not the larger. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
And leading, like I'm doing the work, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
You know.
Yeah. Well, that, yes, not directing other people, but actually, yeah, leading and doing. Sorry, I'll say doing. Doing the work on the growth. Like I don't know. I'm almost like I think it's okay if we figure out the growth plan piece first, and then once we complete that, loop back to the overall process, unless somebody else, you know, has a strong desire to step up and lead that right now.
Makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that like the learning that we can get out of doing it for the growth projects is actually like valuable, and then we can bring this back to a broader conversation. We just probably want to either decide to keep this one open, or have a dedicated issue for the other thing, depending on whether we want to close this one or not.
I kind of
I don't
feel like
think we want to
should have-
close this one,
Yeah.
but it could be taken off the agenda and replaced with one which reflects the focus on the growth part, right?
Oh, I was seeing it the other way, but yeah, that works too. Whichever you're more comfortable with. Maybe splitting those up is a good idea. So then we can finish the growth part, close one of them, and have the other one open. That's maybe not on that's lingering somewhere rather than like on the weekly agenda.
Exactly, right? Like it's basically the other, this one can point to the growth one as the task that's currently being active, but it's not on the agenda because we're not pushing it, right?
Sure.
So do you want to open the growth plan one, and then tag it to the agenda?
I'll do that.
Okay. And this one, do you want, we could like untag it now, just so that it doesn't show
That makes
up for
sense.
next week.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Cool. Moving on. The last item on the agenda here is the governance changes for Collaboration Network. Sounds like there's an update there, Michael.
Yeah, latest update, Brian, let me know, is that it's actually been approved. The vote's complete once we tallied up the numbers, and so I'll go ahead and land those things, and we can consider it complete.
Great. Yay. Congratulations.
Yay, and I'm working on, we'll see, but I'm working on a team to see if they're interested in starting off the first one.
Great. Great. I look forward to hearing more. Cool. That is the agenda. And what do you know? It's only 12:28. So if we did have a working session, we'd have plenty of time to do that. Anything we want to discuss further or work on today?
I think that I was reminded of the other day, maybe we don't need the 30 minutes, but since we have time, we'd had a few sessions talking about the escalation process for the code of conduct. And I think we'd come to consensus on that, but I don't think we've updated the like our docs or anything like that. So I can't remember if anybody had an action to do that, or kind of what our next steps were to close that one out was.
That's a good question. I'm not sure where we left that, and it's an important question.
Maybe I'll open an issue just to get that going again.
That's a good idea.
I might even be able to PR what I remember, and then that other people can correct me if I'm remembering wrong.
Do we want to have a way to have perhaps a label that's for like a potential working session in times like these when we have a half hour and want to hack on something? I don't know. I guess we can just work it out in each meeting issue or something if we want.
There should be some way to let people know in advance that basically is like, hey, this is the plan for the next week's one. And maybe it's that we need to agree in the previous meeting what the next one would be to give people a week's notice, and it can be in the minutes, right?
Yeah, it's a good idea.
I just worry that, like, the issue is only open perhaps a couple days before, and it may be too late at that point for people to think. So,
yeah,
maybe any ideas of what we'd want working session to be next week if we wanted to do one?
Some ideas are the escalation path, make sure that's squared away, and any other code of conduct work that needs to happen. There's more aspects of the review process that we could be fleshing out. Sarah's been doing great work on the supporter program, but I don't know if there's anything we want to collaborate on to further flesh out there. Perhaps at some point, security stuff. Go ahead, Michael.
I was thinking we could do a session on simplifying the proposal process.
That's a great idea.
And I'm kind of thinking like an actual working session where we would like edit what we have down, and that might be a good suggestion.
Mm-hmm. I like that one.
Okay, let's schedule it.
Okay, done.
Done. Okay. So somewhere in the minutes we should put, maybe I'm going to put in the announcement so it's a little more visible. Read to use to. Okay.
Should we do anything with this half hour? I mean, we didn't have anything planned, so I would understand if folks were would rather have the half hour back.
I might borrow a few minutes. I'd sent an email out to the project maintainers list, kind of asking as the community director if there was, something that made sense in terms of getting together or, trying to better have, having a way where I could communicate with them or meet with them periodically. I didn't get any feedback. So I was just wondering, since we have representatives from another number of projects here, if there's any thoughts, like maybe it's not needed since we have CPC representatives who can bring that perspective in as well. I just wanted to make sure if there isn't, if there is any desire or ask that, I figure out what that is and do it. A concrete example is when we're discussing moving from the Node.js having a seat, they were, one of the asks was like, could somebody still come and give us board updates, right? So if there's some other projects that say, hey, we'd really like that, I'd be happy to do those kinds of things. But, maybe just planting the seed here to think a little bit about that and reach out to me and let me know if you have some suggestions, what you think the projects you're involved in would like, or even, something completely different.
Maybe there's something to consider adding to Jory's, regular email updates too. I mean, I think she probably covers a lot of it, but it certainly could be an easy way for any information you have to go out. Although maybe the audience might be different. Maybe
I think she does a great job of covering all the information that goes out. So I'm not worried about that direction. I'm more like, if the project is like, hey, we'd really like, if they have some ask and, they think, that I should be bringing it up at the board meeting or representing it, or if they have a concern, just trying to figure out how in this role I can do that effectively. I know for the Node project I'm involved, so I know directly, right? But in the other projects, they don't have that. I mean, we do have the CPC reps, so it could be that that's already well covered. I'm just exploring what makes sense being new to the role, to this particular role.
should we have a Slack channel? That would be an obvious place that people could go to if they did have something as well. I mean, it probably wouldn't be very active, but it's another thought.
Yeah, no, that's one path.
We created a foundation channel in the Slack org. We could just create a board one. Again, it might be minor, but if I had a board question too, I could just drop in there and say, hey, do we have an update on X?
Sure, that's one. Go ahead.
While we're on the topic of improving communication channels between projects and CPC/board, Chris and myself also have a similar role on the CPC. It would maybe be useful if like all of this was in the same channel somehow.
Right, it's like, because you're right, exactly. Like there's a number of ways that the projects can reach out and communicate. It's just making it as easy as possible for them. And
because I mean, I agree. Like I saw your email. I'm sorry, I was doing a pull request instead of listening to what you were saying, Michael. But I saw your pull request on the topic a while back. Did you get like input on this?
No, I didn't get any responses.
Right.
So this is me, like I just thinking, hey, I still need to do something to close the loop on that. And so I was thinking this group might have some ideas.
I mean, you know, to some degree, like when I was elected in the position I have in the CPC, I wanted to do something similar and didn't really know how to go about it. And then like COVID happened and a whole bunch of things happened. I just like didn't do anything. But I do think that we should do something because it's kind of you know, fun that we get to have a vote, right? But if like this vote is not representative of what we're supposed to be representing it, it's kind of wrong, really. And so we really should do something about it.
Yeah, I had like, you know, some of the things I put in there is like, we could easily set up a quarterly meeting if people, you know, want to get together, or, you know, things like that. Like there's the different channels. I like the Slack channel is a good one. You can have things like a regular meeting, because sometimes people, you know, it's easier to show up for an hour meeting than to put together, to think about what your concerns are and put it into an email. Documenting the channels, like maybe we can add some more documentation that says, hey, if you want to, you know, have a concern, want something to percolate up to the board or to the CPC, here's your channels, right? It could be, you know, you've got your CPC reps, you've got your board representative, you know. Maybe, well, yeah, we've still got time, so we can just use this time. So yeah, so like that's what I was trying to figure out, is what projects might think is useful, right? Because again, if they're just like, we're happy, we don't need anything, yeah, we know who you are, well, if there's a problem, we'll let you know. I don't want to consume anybody's time or effort or whatever by keep asking them, hey, do you want to talk,
Well,
right?
You know, I mean, actually, I ended up as a representative of the AMP project to actually reach out to you and Chris around the ICLA topic. And we had a meeting, and that was extremely useful.
Right.
And so, I mean, obviously, like there's an access thing that I had, but you actually offered to do this.
Right.
You're like, oh, you know, I don't really understand this issue. Let's have a conversation about it. And even though I had the access, I felt that this was a really big opportunity. So, you know, actually just even saying that and creates the, you know, creates the door, like opens the door to people actually doing something and reaching out. So, yeah, now that you know, we're talking about this, I think it would be great to have some kind of like thing where people could just show up and have a discussion, like some way that people can reach out and organize a meeting or something, or, you know, provide this kind of access, because I think it's really valuable. It was really valuable to me.
Right.
And to the project.
And it helps get the right outcome, right? Like, what you know, the whole point is to avoid the, you know, grumbling somewhere, and it's the only reason there's grumbling is because there's like misunderstanding, right? Like, or not enough information to close that gap. So, I mean, I could just do something like, you know, pick, you know, do a couple things. One is like just set an hour every quarter or something that says, hey, if you want to show up, there's a time you can just show up. And then, you know, say in addition, you know, if there's ever an issue here, you can reach out to me, and, you know, and then the second, maybe we should just write up a doc which has the options, and if nobody takes advantage of them, well, we can see. If somebody does, then at least we've tried to start on that.
It might not be bad too, Michael, to, sorry, Toby, real quickly. Maybe like a week before each board meeting, you just send a note out to the projects and say, hey, we have a board meeting in a week. If there's anything you need to be aware of or address. And then you can also include, you know, my door's always open. I have these quarterly meetings. It could be even a form email that goes out every time, but at least the projects would then know, oh yeah, I get these emails. I'm kind of used to them. I delete them, but oh, this one time, you know,
I got something that's on my mind, right?
Yeah.
I was also wondering, oh, I see Chris has unmuted himself. Maybe he has something to say. I was going to.
Yes, it may be like unclear from the perspective of a project maintainer, like why they would need to ask the board anything. And so you know, that I don't know about how to go about explaining, well, you can go to the CPC for X, Y, and Z, but the board needs to consider, you know, these things. You know, I don't recall the text of that mail that you sent, Michael, but I did read it. And I don't remember if it was just like, well, does anybody need anything, or was it more like, this is what I can do for you, like, and then bullet points of like a list of offers you could take me up on, because like it just might be easier that way if people don't know like what they can ask you to do.
Yeah, it
You know
was
what I mean?
more, it was more of an ask in terms of like, hey, you know, I fulfilled the role for the Node project. I know their issues and concerns very well because I'm involved, and I've been able to represent those at the board. What would be useful for people in terms of, you know, helping me understand them, those kinds of issues in the projects? You know, would we want to, I could, you know, for example, I've shown up at the CPC, sorry, at the TC and ComCom meetings. I could do something similar if projects were interested, or I could set up, you know, periodic meetings where we could get together and talk. I do take your point though, that it's not obvious, because I think most of the time the answer is the projects really don't need to talk to the board, right? Like it's meant to be that the CPC will handle most of the things, and that projects mostly run on their own anyway. So it's kind of the exceptional case, right?
All right. So then, I mean, you know, if you don't get a response, I mean, maybe then it's working as intended.
I think I can, you know, putting together a doc that says, here's what we expect the community, you know, what the community director will do on an ongoing basis. And I can put in a few things like, I like the Slack channel. I like the idea of, you know, just an email sent every, you know, a week before every board meeting, just as a reminder that says, hey, if you do have something on the top of your head, and even, you know, at some interval, say quarterly, setting up an hour where people from projects can come and just say, well, what's this board stuff? Or, you know, even if it's like, well, why should I care? They can ask, or, you know, get to know your representative, whatever, something like that. And we can see if anybody does show up or not, right?
I
Sounds
think
good.
Michael, I mean, I don't know what you think, Chris, but shouldn't the three of us that have representative roles be working
Yes.
on something like that together?
Yes.
I mean, I could even imagine that we could do like a rolling sort of like office hour or something like that. That we, you know,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like yes, it would be good if it's like, here are the representatives you can tap.
Because to some degree, the thing is like, you know, a project TSC doesn't necessarily know whether something needs to be handled by the CPC or the board. And so we should probably be the ones triaging those questions rather than expect them to know whether they need to talk to you or to Chris and myself.
Yeah. No, I think that, so yeah, so maybe you know, the three of us can start a conversation on what we want to document on that front.
Yeah, if you have a regular meeting like that, feel free to invite me. And you know, even if nobody shows up, we could think about ways that we could benefit the projects more in general, and kind of use it as a working session if nobody shows up to ask questions.
Sounds good.
Me, Chris, or the other Chris?
You,
Mikasa.
Chris.
I think Toby had in mind the non-impact project representatives, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So
I think the other Chris is the representative of the CPC, so he should be in touch with the CPC members that, you know, if there's something that the CPC wants to have go to the board, he would be the channel for that. Not that he couldn't be involved in this, but just thinking based on the way the roles are outlined, that would be my understanding.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay, so that's some good ideas, and I will start an email. Like maybe we can see how far we can get through email, Toby and Chris, And then from that, we can
Yeah, let's do
decide
that.
whether we need a meeting or not, right?
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you gonna do
Yeah,
that?
I'll kick that
All
off.
right, cool.
Yep. Okay. No, yeah. Thanks for everybody's time on that. That was definitely some good suggestions.
Yeah, great. Cool. All right, 13 minutes left. We want to call it a wrap. Or does anybody have anything else they want to chat about, or anything else? I'm hungry, so I'm happy to say goodbye to all you nice folks.
Sorry, just before, I don't know, Robin, did you want to mention the supporter program?
Yeah, well, we could. It probably takes more than a few minutes. I saw that Sarah had a chance to review. If you want to flag it for folks to take a look.
Okay. I guess the key thing to explain maybe was the approach that we talked about taking, which was we're trying to decouple, like the individual membership program was tied to the third director seat. So we actually had quite a long discussion about what we do on that front. And so in the end, if you're looking at that PR and you're wondering why we deleted the reference to that, the thought is that the individual supporter program isn't tied to that seat, and that from the discussion, it's not something we want tied to that seat. So we're basically saying the CPC no longer needs an individual membership program. It's not the way to go. It's this individual supporter program. The third seat, it doesn't make sense to be tied to that. So we're deleting the references to that. So basically, let's get rid of the individual membership program and replace it with the supporter program. What that does leave is the bylaws having a reference to a third seat for an individual membership program, which we're never going to actually spin up. And so the seat wouldn't activate as the current wording. So as a totally separate discussion, there'll be proposals, and Jory and Robin, we're going to work with the CPC for a proposal that says, well, how do we recast, what we think makes sense for that seat and have the bylaws updated and all that. But in the first case, we're just saying, okay, what we're proposing here just doesn't relate to that. So let's take out the references to it. And it's kind of like the CPC is saying, thank you, board, for chartering us, giving us some responsibility, but that's not the way we think we need to go. We want to go this other way.
Yeah, I think that pull request could use a look. And also, I think something that would be helpful for me is to understand next steps. So my plan is to reach out to Robin and Jory and whoever else is interested, so we could just talk about how we want to roll it out and what the timeline is that we're looking at.
Yeah, and I think essentially we'll just have the board sign off on just the wording on the charter change, which should be pretty fast. Rachel and I are already working with our creative agency to come up with some branding ideas. So I think Jory's putting together a scheduling doodle. And what else? Then we should probably be close to launching at the end of the month, which would be
I guess the ask would be for all the CPC members to take a look at that before, say, what is today? Today's Tuesday. Like, whatever is reasonable, it would be nice to get the vote started on the board front within a few days, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
So if people could take a look, flag if there's any major issues, comment, and then maybe Friday we'll call for the board vote, assuming that, we're not going to get any objections, even though maybe we might a little bit later because our governance gives more time, but we'll try and get the board vote and that in parallel.
Yeah. Yeah, and then execution again is pretty easy. That we have the Linux Foundation auto join for our website for OpenJS, so that's very easy. Credit card Stripe. What else? The comms plan is in development, so everything is, I think, falling into place for execution. Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, just please review the PR and.
Please review the.
Yeah, that's the biggest ask, I guess, at this point.
Yeah.
Okay, and sorry, now back to, there's 7 minutes left to get back, or 9 minutes or something.
Yeah, Joe had some lunch.
All right, great. Well, good meeting, friends. Nice to see you all, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.